Hello everyone, you're welcome to this edition of The Insight. I am Babler Jonathan. Few months to the 2025 presidential election in Cameroon, we are looking at the state of the nation and projecting into the future of a better Cameroon. The nation that Cameroonians are earnestly yearning for, a nation where rights are respected, a nation where democratic principles are respected, a nation where the people have better living conditions. Meet our guest in some few seconds. Our guest today is a renowned anti-corruption crusader and good governance advocate, eminent lawyer, international legal consultant, goodwill ambassador of the African Legal Support Facility, and member of the African Union High-Level Panel on Illicit Financial Flows, chaired by South African President or former South African President Thabo Mbeki, former Cameroon Bar President and presidential aspirant. Barrister Akere, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having me.
Right. What is your perspective of the state of the nation today? What's your reading of the current situation of Cameroon?
Well, it's a saddening situation, very saddening, because our country is stagnating right before our eyes. You can take any sector. I was listening to a magistrate, I think last night or 2 nights ago, and he was saying that the movements and promotions in magistracy have been stalled for 5 years. This, of course, because the High Council of Magistrates hasn't met. And I was in court in Bafoussam the other day, and I was talking to some members of the courts there, and they were deploring the fact that the guys who left school 5 years, 5 different batches are waiting. They waited at home, and now they have deployed them in all the jurisdictions. But it is of no use, because they haven't been sworn in, so they cannot go to court. They're still living on salaries, which are their school allowances. We look at 5 generations. I bring this up because it shows that we are stagnating. How many cabinet ministers have we lost? Not replaced. If you go now to the economic sector, what is moving? We are now resorting to this commercial loans that we are now lifting at what, 11%. Other countries are doing 7 to 8%. Why? Because our country is considered a political risk. You listen to the teachers and all this, and the problems they have. Many years unsolved. University lecturers, many years, but nothing unsolved. The roads, infrastructure, nothing is moving. We were sold lies. You heard the former moderator, complain about the fact that although they were saying 90% of the road, I think towards Akere was done, nothing was done. I mean, virtually every sector is stagnating. And in the same time, we keep having scandals of thievery and corruption. The latest of which, of course, is the SNH scandal, in which a company is formed overnight with Tradex and a foreign partner nobody has ever heard of for strategic petroleum storage in Kribi, and the head of the company is not only the wife of the boss of SNH, and she's now chairman and of the board, and also the head of the CEO of the company. I mean, you know, so what about Limbe refinery? Does it mean that that's it? They're going to move the refinery to Kribi? I mean, the country is in such a mess, and you wonder who is at the rudder.
You said Cameroon is considered today as a political risk.
It is considered by those who lend the money to the country. They consider us as a political risk.
Why? Because of the tension in the air? Because of
because of the uncertainty of the political process. The uncertainty. We have a leader who is 93 years old. Maybe he's brilliant. His party is uncertain. I mean, one member of the party is actually suing the party because he said all the organs of the party are illegal. So the confusion is palpable. And many, many reports consider Cameroon as an uncertain political situation, hence the political risk. We know that.
We'll take a look at your vision of the Cameroon of tomorrow. But before that, we go to the newsstands, and we are looking at what the newspapers reported this week. The press view. The National Post highlights the Norwegian Refugee Council report for 2025, ranking Cameroon as the world's most neglected displacement crisis. The report highlights what it describes as the desperate situation of more than 2 million internally displaced people, refugees and returnees, many of whom continue to suffer in silence due to chronic underfunding, limited media attention, and a shrinking lack of political action on both domestic and international fronts. In the meantime, the Prime Minister, Chief Dr. Joseph John Goody, acknowledges developmental progress of the presidential plan for the reconstruction and development of the northwest and southwest regions of the country, as reported by the Post. The Guardian Post, Ring Road construction, Sheikh Jones Iyembe's Maxal, leaving lasting legacy. Aside speeding construction of the Ndung-Kambe lap of the Ring Road, the company is poised to deliver one of the best third roads in the country. Maxal Chief Executive Officer hailed for prompt payment of indemnities for properties and crops destroyed. News Hub reports the final phase of an agri-business project agreement between the University of Buea and the European Union. Cameroon Tribune reports worries expressed by Cameroon within the context of the Economic Partnership Agreement with the European Union. Another issue of Cameroon Tribune reports the active participation of Cameroonians in the diaspora in the economic development of their country. According to Cameroon Insider, the examinations organized by the General Certificate of Education Board started hitch-free in all the 493 accommodation centers across the country, not the least in the crisis-stricken northwest and southwest regions. In another issue of the Guardian Post, former Prime Minister Peter Mafani Musonge tells elite of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement (CPDM) in the southwest region, be ready to fund Bia's re-election campaign. You're welcome back. We are still with our guest, Barrister Akere, anti-corruption crusader, good governance advocate, and presidential aspirant. Now, Barrister, earlier you showed your intention, you declared your intention to run for the top job of the President of the Republic, and then that ended halfway, and now you've come back. What is different this time?
I think the first time I ventured into this field, I was actually causing my transition from civil society politics, or activism as some people call it, to real political engagement, dealing with political parties. And so our electoral system forces us to be able to either have a political base or to have 330 signatures, that is 330 from every region. So what's different? What's different this time that the president is 7 years old? His ability to act is patent, even to those who thought that, oh, he's the best who can do this job. And I think Cameroonians, their situation has deteriorated to a point where they know they need a change. So I think that people will be receptive to my message. I've been talking about corruption for the past 30 years. And so people think it's a joke. I have to make an exception here, though. Prime Minister Musonge saw this very well. And he had concrete policies to move us out of that. But I think he was slowed down by other forces. The strength of Transparency International started with PM Musonge when he was PM. I think he perceives this, that the biggest problem we have, the obstacle we have, is corruption. And I think Cameroonians more and more, those I meet, those who write to me, those who sneak in to see me at night, those who send messages, those who send emissaries, it is clear that they understand that the biggest problem we have in this country today is corruption, is money. You see rallies now with a hand up. This time I'm determined. Professor Kumvondo, who is the head of the Univer Party, and Dr. Balaguer, who is the Secretary General of UPC, and some other leaders came to see me.
Dennis of the Popular
Of course,
Party.
Dennis, you know, valiant, youthful, hardworking gentleman, self-made man actually, came and saw me that they think that I should run and they would support me. So in the first line, of course, is Professor Kumvondo, who has a party with elected officials, so he qualifies to nominate. And when people come and talk to you, that they think that my expertise is what can take them out, when they agree that a transition period is necessary to look at all the constitution, the electoral laws, and put everything that everybody plays on a level, even playing field, then we can have elections again. I think that I'm determined that if there's anything I can give to my country is to make sure that we can transit from this abyss to a hopeful future. You must feel that Cameroonians are so stupid that they don't feel that they need a change to move forward. We are a country loaded with mines in the east. Can you imagine that we don't have a mining industry per se? It's still this permits and artisanal with a lot of foreigners in league with some government officials who just dig our mines and go away. I'm convinced that now is the time, and I hope we can have this conversation in November, you and I, but in Unity Palace.
We hope so. Right, so let's get into your vision.
Yeah.
Your vision for Cameroon, which is based on 8 pillars.
Correct, yes.
Tell us more about this
listen,
8-pillar vision.
As I told you, my proposal is to do a transitional government of 5 years. And the 5 years will be to fine-tune all the instruments of governance and make sure we can go ahead. And the 8 pillars, those I consider should be the locomotive of the driving force, you know.
And before we get into your vision, you know, these promises have been made by other leaders before. I mean, those are already in position of authority. And some military leaders also who came in and said, okay, I'm just going to fix things. I'm just going to put order. And then I hand over to a civilian. I hand over to this or that. And then at the end of the day, the sit-tight syndrome comes in. And
well, listen, I'm grateful for the life I've had, the experience I have amassed from everywhere, and tell you, this is an expensive enterprise, one. And secondly, I could go and work anywhere and earn much, much better than what I'm spending now, wasting my time on. So I am determined that this is the best gift I can do to my country, to head a movement that brings in a transition. So all I can do is watch me, as James Brown used to say in his song, watch me.
Right, so
I'm going to do 5 years and resign, because it's 7 years. 5 years and resign. And I'll leave at the age of, you know, under 80, 78 or something like that. And I resign, just to make sure that the country can breathe again. So we can bet on it. You can say what you want. There is no way. Even if in 5 years the process is not completed, I will still leave. I will still leave. But I think 5 years is ample enough to turn the system around, hold elections to all the different elected institutions, and finally the presidential election. The president is elected, I doff my hat to him, and he becomes president.
Right, so give us an understanding of your 8-pillar vision for Cameroon.
Well, as I was trying to say in the beginning, this 8-pillar is priority areas. It's a priority program that will, I think, will move the country forward. The first thing is obviously
strengthening democracy and governance.
Exactly. Why? Because
we know you pretty much in that area of good governance,
democracy,
and democracy.
It is going to look at the electoral system. How do we build a democracy? And the school, in my experiences, you see me wears this badge here. It's an African peer review mechanism. I think that's the greatest school I had. It is an institution created by the African Union that evaluates the governance of all the institutions of every country. And I've led evaluations in Sierra Leone, Tanzania, Rwanda, Ethiopia. And you speak only to the heads of states. And I've been able to, through that process, to understand what are the basic needs of a country. So in trying to put that together, it's making sure that the institutions are there. They're injected with a new verve that has the people at the center and not the people at the periphery. That's very important. We have to make sure we have a strengthened civil society. I mean, the survival of a country is what I call the golden triangle. Civil society, which includes religious bodies and all that, public sector, and private sector. These are the three wheels. If they turn in unison, there's no country that cannot make progress. But in our country, civil society is suppressed. Look at what's happening to Mrs. Alison Combe, my colleague. This woman is 80. A couple of weeks ago, I was in court, sitting there, wondering what was happening to an 80-year-old lady in court because she broke down the seals illegally placed in an office. This is ridiculous. We don't have better to do. We have declared criminals running up and down, and all our target is on Alison Combe, 80 years old. Come on, man. So I think that is democracy and governance.
And that's why you're talking about promoting free and fair elections,
yes.
Strengthening transparency and accountability within government, and establishing a truly decentralized form of government within a federation where the leaders are chosen by the people.
Correct. So
you're talking about a return to the federal system.
Well, that is at the core of my decentralization project. This decentralization is fake. It's even centralized. Because you have a minister of decentralization, you have delegations of centralization, you have all of that. So I think that, we need to have a federal system, properly federal system. I don't have a problem with having Northwest and Southwest in separate states because they can mutualize afterwards. They are common law jurisdiction. They can have the same Supreme Court. I mean, they can agree on education. Why should somebody here in Yaoundé decide on the transfer of a teacher in my village in Gembo, primary school teacher at that? So, decentralization through a federal system is the way to go. It's the way to go.
And you're also talking about establishing an appropriate legal framework for the declaration of assets to ensure an effective fight against illicit enrichment. About this, because the legal system that we have in Cameroon today is seen by many Cameroonians as an institution which they cannot trust.
True.
Are you saying that this situation will change and the people will be able to trust the legal system?
Oh, of course, of course. You have to get the magistrates. If you liberate the magistrates institutionally, then you can hold them accountable. You cannot go and give a judgment. There have been cases where I go and talk to issues where he had instructions. Judges have told me that. So why do we have
the Minister of Justice recently talked about influence peddling?
Yeah, exactly. He said, all instruction that people shouldn't believe it. That is from the inside now. It's not me saying. Okay, the president is the head of the magistracy. That's judiciary. He's head of the executive. He's also indirectly head of the legislature because he has the majority in parliament and he decides who becomes the president of the parliament, and he determines basically who becomes the president of the Senate. Since he names 30%, he just needs 21% to be able to be the boss of the Senate. So he controls all the institutions of the country. He controls everything. It's not surprised that, we saw the parliament being named after the leader of a party who never sat in parliament. All these things we're seeing, my dear brother, are signs that we have a system which is just crumbling right before our very eyes.
All right, and then on the second point, you have economic development and job creation. This is an area which directly affects many Cameroonians, especially when we're talking about job creation and so on. Then you're talking about making Cameroonians living abroad a key element in our country's development process. Are you talking about changing the law on issues of dual nationality, for example?
Or multiple. That is one thing I can't understand. In 2023, 400 billion CFA came into our country from Cameroonians living abroad. I don't like calling them diaspora because some strange for some strange reason, when they talk about diaspora, it's about blacks and Asians and all that. You never hear about the American diaspora, the German diaspora, the French diaspora. You don't know how many you can have, so I just call them Cameroonians living abroad. My program for the resurrection of the country is impossible without institutionally linking Cameroonians. So I have a simple principle. Born a Cameroonian, always a Cameroonian, regardless of whatever nationality you take. It's ridiculous to have people who cannot come back to this country. They have to go and get a visa, get letters of invitation, all kind of rubbish. If it's a financial problem, okay, let's say that if you're a Cameroonian, you need to pay X amount of some kind of poll tax for your head, per head a year. Cameroonians will pay that. But they should be free to go and come from their country. So within 1 hour of being sworn in, that will be sorted out as a temporal gap by executive order, which is called decree. But the law has to be amended to make sure that we Cameroonians can be Cameroonian and can be in any other nationality which one. Most of the time, nationalities of convenience. So we have to make sure that if you're born a Cameroonian, you will always be a Cameroonian.
Even if you take up another
1, 2, 3, 4, 5
nationality.
Some people think I don't have an advantage in it. My late wife was American, from the West Indies. So she had a West Indies passport, she had an American passport. She lived so long in the UK, she had a UK passport. I was married for over 40 years. I have never applied for another nationality. Never applied. I've never been any national of any other country. I've never applied for another nationality. Of course, my daughters, they're married, they're living abroad, so they're American. So that's their problem. But I've never applied, and I will never apply.
All right. Well, definitely, when we look at the amount of money flowing into the country from the diaspora, from Cameroonians who are out there, 400 billion and so on, that was in 2023. We can perceive that you're thinking about bringing in this money or stepping up the financial flows from out there to boost what you highlight in your economic and development, job creation, economic development and job creation perspective of your vision, talking about investing in infrastructural and technological development, rethinking the country's strategy as regards railway lines, air transport and road networks, promote agriculture, innovation, food safety, build a favorable environment for the business climate and investment protection. All of these are really sounding beautiful.
Yeah.
But
how do you go about it?
The issue is how to go about all of this.
I think that Cameroon is ready because of the failure of those who are down here. Nothing has been done. Can you imagine if we decide, and I'm holding this from experts, a former president of the African Development Bank, he said, Akere, you guys by now should have had a railway line that goes from Yaoundé to Kuseri with the new gauge, because our railways is still the old gauge, so narrower. The new gauge is wider. The trains move faster and they're modern. So you can have that. I tried to get them to accept it, they didn't. He said, Akere, if you become president, I volunteer to be able to raise the money for a railway link between your two main cities, Douala and Yaoundé. So you can have electric trains. The advantage of that is that even the villages now will benefit from electricity. So can you imagine how many people were employed in that process? The plans for bringing back people from the boys from the bushes, so to speak, and all that. What is the development plan linked to it? Is it just comes for a settlement? How do they move on in life? Some come and go away. How do you move on in life? How do you move on in life? What industry do you propose to them? I went to Kembong 3 days after the destruction. You know, so 2 or 3 Janans were killed, and the army just moved in there and just destroyed the city, one of the vibrant cities in the Manu. 6,000 about inhabitants. The place was cleared. Houses burned, destroyed, hotels torn down, TV. I mean, it's amazing. From 6,000 people, there were less than 10 people there. Old guys and people who were there to take care of their family. That's those who were left there. And what was the plan for reconstruction? None. The government should have quickly moved in there and said, you know what? Who was the plumber here? Who was the hardware store person here? Who was the builder here? Who was the carpenter here? Get those guys together, retool them, and help them rebuild their areas. And that's what we should do. All these villages that have been destroyed, we should empower those who were there before to be able to rebuild. And that's what the government should be doing, to make sure that people can rebuild and fend for themselves. So that project, all these projects are meant to, when we talk about the diaspora and, you know, Cameroonians living abroad, so to speak, the human resources there are incredible. There are doctors, professors who are ready to give 2 months a year to teach. We don't need a mercyship. We have specialized doctors. You put the unit here, they will say, okay, every April or and September they'll be here to do the most complicated operations to help Cameroonians. Give them space. And how do you reward them? We should have a department in this country that caters for Cameroonians living abroad who want to build. Where do they want to build? Help them to locate the land. Have a company that is really well made, retooled to help them build. Because they have a big problem. They will come and get the land, give the money to your cousin, whap, the guy swipes it, and all that. We have Cameroonians abroad who have people sick here. You make a fund. They can take to pharmacy or wherever. They pay the pharmacy in a common fund. When the person is sick, they just go to the pharmacy and collect drugs. There are little things that can be done by Cameroonians themselves to help them. If you do the amount of food which is sold abroad, I'm happy that many Cameroonians, you know, are fighting hard to be those who sell our food abroad. It was Chinese before. With the increase of non, you know, ethnic Africans in Europe, the consumption of Cameroonian products has rocketed. How do you feel? How do we feed in there? How do you get Cameroonians involved? There are so many things to do. Our education system, that's archaic. I mean, I'm proud of a young man called Mr. Fortier, who has created a company called Pequeño. It teaches people in telemarketing. He's trained about 1,000 people. He had a training session, a rally in the Palais de Congrès. Over 1,000 people who came to learn, how can I market? The young ladies who have been struggling in Mokola and other people to sell, now they can sell online. So that's what he does. Startups go to Silicon Mountain. How do you help those guys to move forward? What do you do? Man, there's so much to be done.
Tapping from the multiple
opportunities that are created now
in the global business perspective of e-commerce. Now, about education, which you mentioned, one of the points has to do with STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Yes.
And before that, you're also talking about vocational training.
Exactly.
Tell us about these two
perspectives.
Because it looks like the education system of Cameroon today is more inclined towards theory.
Yeah, theory. I mean, you know,
I mean,
in days gone, you must be younger, there was Ombe Technical College, which was put there in West Cameroon in those days. Those guys made car parts. There was another thing that you could make furniture. These guys could do everything. So the vocational training, and also these companies we see all around the place, must be forced to take interns from our technical colleges and employ them as well. Of course, you can give them an incentive. Based on how many people you employ or train, you get a tax rebate. So they are forced to take some of these people. I met a gentleman who was teaching in technical school in Kongsamba. What did he do? He created a company. And he took everybody from every branch there. And they had contracts in the port in Kribi. And he took only his students. They did the job perfectly. And now they're waiting to get paid. When somebody like that should have been prioritized in the government system, because when they get out, they're good to go. There are things that Cameroonians are ready to do, but they don't have help. Today I was telling you, I had a meeting with motor taxi guys. And then I realized that. Do you know that we don't have a government urban transport system? How do people get to work? How do children go to school? How do people circulate? How do they move from these back cities with no roads? Motor taxi men. So they are fulfilling an enormous social duty. Yes, they are rough. Yes, there's this, and the other. I had a very important meeting in London once. I had to be there the next day. I left the house, I went through Équinoxe, traffic jam. There was no way. I was 2.5 hours from my flight. Myself, my assistant, and somebody else. We took 3 bites, carried my suitcases, we got to the airport. I was able to make such an important meeting, which determined many issues in my life. So then I realized that these guys have to be careful. Another thing I used to complain about, I say, people should consume, we should not have second-hand clothing into the country because, it slows down the local market. Man, then my communications advisor took me to a market in Douala where they sell wholesale second-hand clothing. I met a woman. The woman said, I have 5 children. With 10,000 francs, I dress all of them. And I realized that if you don't look at the way Cameroonians survive, then you cannot know what they need. And I pressed her to say, no. These guys in high place, do they know what these guys go through, what they need to survive? So our vocational training is the same. If you go to technical schools, it's not to finish and go and stay home with the same parents who saw them through that school. They should be able to find something to do or be helped to start some business. So we have to concentrate on startups and change the curriculum, man. All this, philosophy and the stories about this and the other. It leads you to nowhere. The history of Europe and the First and Second World War is probably an interesting story, but it's not what people should be filling exams about.
Cameroon's number 1 trading partner is China, and then number 2 is Nigeria. But when you go to Nigeria, Cameroon is on the 14th place. I believe that these reasons, the barriers that exist between African countries, are those that cause this imbalance in trade. Cameroon and Nigeria will have an incredible border. For the Cameroonian economy, it makes more sense to trade with this giant Nigeria, 250 million population, as opposed to the 35 million of Cameroon. I believe that the future is bright, but I'm disappointed in the level of trade they have. Now, they do trade a lot with the West because of issues of import substitution. As long as we don't produce finished products, we don't develop our industries to transform what we have to finished products, we're going to have problems of import substitutions. Cameroon has a lot to give Nigeria, Nigeria has a lot to give Cameroon, and I believe that once these barriers are put down, we're going to do very well in terms of trade with Nigeria.
Give us an understanding of some of these major barriers. You're talking about the import substitution issues. Take us into the details of this.
Well, for one, the barriers are trade barriers like tariffs, roads, shipping, and the likes in our level of industrialization. It becomes a difference. We go from being exporters of raw material to exporters of finished products that are useful to the consumer, which is the most profitable of all all the business in the industrialized society. That's where we need to be. That's the biggest obstacle we face.
The tariffs, are they very high?
The tariffs themselves, if you are a small startup, or if you are an entrepreneur, if you are a buy and sell, or as they put it, a trader, any amount of tariff means a lot to you because of the volume you are dealing with. You understand? And these costs are a barrier to your development, to development of your business. With the development of business and the world the way it's going, and the way Nigeria and Cameroon are engaging, we're seeing that industrialization is a priority, and that business is going in that direction, no matter what, because there's no choice. There's no choice to it.
So, what are the opportunities? You started talking about the population of Nigeria, for example, which is a major opportunity for Cameroon, for example. What are other opportunities that can be exploited or can be more exploited within the context of trade between Cameroon and Nigeria?
It's a question of synergies. Cameroon is a huge agricultural hub. It's a paradise for agriculture. We can grow anything. We can basically supply any agricultural product. Nigeria has a high population, okay, which even if we work hard as we do whatever, we will have a difficulty to meet by ourselves. But the beauty of industrialization is that you take raw materials and transform them into finished products. Down the chain, it is better and it is easier, than to carry bulky raw material and trying to sell to somebody else. You make far less money. Your economy is developed far less. The margins are just ridiculously different, higher when it is a finished product. So there are many advantages to this international trade. And then the level of jobs you create in the market, your people's lives just grow better. So, this common area idea is a very good idea for business in general, and for employment, for development of Africa.
So what is needed for these barriers to be put down and the volume of trade increased significantly?
Well, for one, I believe that the idea of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is a great one. All African nations should sign up to that. Bring down those barriers. That's what the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is doing. They gave themselves until 2065. For now, 8 nations pretty much signed up. All nations are signing, but 8 nations are pretty much fully signed up and are going to be moving, Nigeria being one. So I believe that, with that implementation, we will get to where we need to get. But right now, what is happening with Cameroon and Nigeria is that we're going a step further. We are taking this trade idea a step further. We are implementing the idea of trade industrialization and synergies between the two countries. We're now starting to fully participate in our trade, in our common values, our common trade. Cameroonians are participating more. Nigerians are now fully engaged in coming to Cameroon to participate in the industrialization of Cameroon and to take advantage of what Cameroon has to offer. We Cameroonians were ready to feed them, to give them a lot of things that they don't have. So we're ready. It's a process that is engaged. As we engage from the business point of view, of course, we need good governance, which comes with agreements like the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is there. We as a people have to love our nations to be able to achieve that level of development also. I believe that we are moving strongly in that direction. And with this participation of with what is going to happen in Cameroon in the next few days with the initiatives of a great leader and a fantastic friend of the nation as former President Obasanjo and his fellow business partners coming to Cameroon to engage fully in the process. I think it will send a message continent-wide, and it will provide close to 30,000 jobs to Cameroonians if we do fully engage ourselves, And The Nigerians are showing readiness. I see Cameroon is also showing readiness with what is happening with Kribi. You understand? So I think there's movement and progress in that direction.
The event you're talking about definitely has this main objective to fast-track the process of stepping up trade between Nigeria and Cameroon. Tell us a little more about that event.
Well, as I said, I mentioned the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo. President Olusegun Obasanjo is committed to come to Cameroon on June 10th. And before that, we had met in Nigeria and advanced a theory. I was wondering how come the first farmer of Africa did not have a presence in Cameroon, and we're neighbors. So I decided to go over there and challenge the former president on that. Wrote him a concept paper. I said, I don't understand your position here on this African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Here we are Cameroon, a hub of agriculture, powerful agricultural country. We're the #1 farmer in Africa, but you don't have a presence in Cameroon. And he thought that was funny enough. He said, well, I'm coming to Cameroon, all right? And if I'm coming to Cameroon, what can you offer me? That is how that conversation started. And now we're at the point where we've converged ideas and we're coming full force to Kribi to participate in the industrialization of that area, to bring in investments, to challenge this African Continental Free Trade Agreement idea, cross-border trading. And he, as a champion of it, has decided to come to Cameroon to pursue the idea.
Now, you already started talking about the fallout, the expected fallout of the upcoming event. Tell us a little more about what both countries stand to benefit from this event.
Well, for one, from the Cameroonian side, you have major industries in agriculture, because you have the former president of Nigeria, President Olusegun Obasanjo, who has been granted 610 hectares in the port area to develop his activities, which I think is an incredible opportunity given by the Cameroonian government. Then you have shipping, maritime, that is going to be highlighted in this event. We're going to oil and gas people coming in, to develop what is a big issue in this area, tank farms. We have the biggest refinery, one of the biggest refinery in the world next door to us. Taking advantage of these what can I say? These synergies or these economies of scale is very important. Then, of course, we have hospitality, which is going to be developed. Since the Cameroon and the Kribi area is a great tourism area. When you go from Kribi to Yoyo, you have golden beaches, which are not completely exploited. Nigerians see this. It's a great advantage. Nigeria still has 250 million people. Kribi port is doing already 80% of its business with Nigeria. So that was already an advantage. The Chinese are seriously involved in our process, in the sense that they build that port and the Chinese want to seriously invest in Kribi because they see Kribi as a great outlet for East and West Africa for China. One great thing that we keep forgetting in the global economic scale, Asia 5 billion, China's market 6.5 billion. And that's what they're doing. That tells me everything. And they said Kribi is the perfect outlet for them in East and West Africa. So that should give us a lot of ideas. And they also want to participate in our agriculture. They said, tell me things that like they want to build, they want to take African restaurants to China because the Chinese love African food. So there are many things that come out of this whole flow of business engagement. For the Nigerian side, is great investment. Great investment. There are billionaires in Nigeria that are willing to invest further all over Africa. You understand? And when you have people like Dangote, Afolabi of Skyfax, CFAX, you have and Marriott in Nigeria. You have people like Tony Elumelu, you have Access Bank and people. Nigerians are invested. They want to pursue the engagement in Cameroon. You understand? And Cameroon is a great place for investment because the currency is stable, no matter how we see it, as compared to the Naira. We have a more stable currency. So there are many advantages to both nations in terms of advancing further. Cameroon, great employment. We're expecting from this event over the years 30,000 jobs created in the region. So there are many advantages that can come out of it.
What exactly are you going to be doing in 3 days?
For one, we're welcoming President Obasanjo. Okay, after speaking, you have to have action. Action is President Obasanjo will be present in Cameroon. He shall come and meet his friend, brother, President Paul Biya, and tell him what he is going to be doing in Kribi, and hope to obtain his unction, his blessing, to go further, because you don't come and, he's going to obtain his blessing. And if he gets the blessing for what they're doing, he's calling all his friends that he's bringing with him, as he has created a lot of billionaires, as you know, in Nigeria and Africa, to come and join him in this event, to come and join him in investing in Kribi, and pursuing the cross-border trade ideals and the industrialization of Africa ideals by Africans. That's what that's what we'll be expecting in the next 3 days. So he will come in with a high delegation of business people. And for the next 3 days after his arrival, they're going to be working with the port of Kribi and other Cameroonian businessmen to make sure that everything follows the right path for this event to be the reality that it must be.
Barrister, tell us about the reforms that you're looking at in the health sector, in the social, justice and human rights sector, that is point number 5 and 6 respectively, and then you have security, peace building, security and peace building, and lastly sports, culture and tourism. What are the major reforms that you're looking at in these sectors?
Well, if we start with, let's start with what I just mentioned, tourism and culture and all. I think that it is amazing. I just, a couple of months ago, assisted the burial of Coco Ateba. Coco Ateba was one of the first female, second, Anne-Marie Ndiaye used to play the guitar. Coco Ateba was the second female artist I knew who played the acoustic guitar, composed and sang. And I was in awe when I saw her in the 81. What has been done to help her boost her talent? Nothing. She dies in close to total misery of cancer in France. People had to contribute to bring her body back here because they couldn't fly her back. And we have the most vibrant artists in this country, creative, even those who are coming out now. And because of the boost from the Nigerian vibrancy, you know how many Anglophone artists we're having now. With a plus, because they sing in both languages. And the music scene now is totally, I want to take it over, is heavily populated by Anglophone artists. Because of that they're very versatile. And they have gotten the advantage of being influenced, even actors, by what's happening next with our neighbors in Nigeria. So these people need protection. We always have this thing about the rights, copyrights and all that kind of stuff. Never solved. It's because the money is just stolen. Why can't we have every 3-4 months a declaration? How much was collected? Oh yeah, we used to have only one TV, it was okay. But now there's Équinoxe, there are many other TV stations. Why is it that this audio-video tax should be paid only to the CRTV? All of you render a government service. Some of you even more, because of what you talk about and who you meet. So, if Cameroonians are paying for that service, everybody who serve the Cameroonians should be able to benefit from that. So, that's talking broadly about culture now. The culture in this country, man. We have a real rich culture. It's okay to claim we are over 200 ethnic groups. What is their culture? What cultural festival do we have? Why can't we have regional cultural festivals where you boost your culture to the level of things like the Ngwon or the Ngondo or Lela they used to have in Bali. Or, yeah. So there are all these things that could be valorized to make our country attractive to tourism. Our country is the most tourism unfriendly. From the moment you step at the airport, the way you receive, the way you're harassed, the long walks to the out of there, and then the police will harass you, and no maintenance in the national parks. Are you kidding? Go and look at Chang, Saint Climatique du Chang. It used to be an incredible tourism resort. Now people are living in parts of it, roof torn down. What kind of thing is this? So that those parts are just allowed to go to decay. To culture, tourism. These are money winners. Do you know how much money Rwanda makes just from its gorillas? People come and visit and pay to see. Come on, man. The biggest artisanal market in Marwa. I went there. It had no roof. During the rainy season, the guys had to carry their goods and run away. It had no roof. So what is it that causes us not to trust our own, to join in the development project? And that's what we did. Cameroonians have to be involved. Why does Nigeria survive? Oh, corruption. Yeah, but the people are vibrant. They work. And maybe another time we'll have to talk about this. These Cameroon, 30 million people, leaning on a market of 200 million. We don't valorize that. We don't use that to boost ourselves. We should have at least three free trade zones. One in Manu, one in northwest around Womb there and Cambe. Another one in the extreme north, in the far north, and Adamawa. The long way, 1,700 kilometers of border. They can be used. The Mentum Falls. Why don't we have it? In the years of we say, please, Billy will buy the electricity from there. The opportunities are so many. If you had a deep sea port, this brilliant engineer, Mr. Fonjindam, what he was trying to do, 10,000 people would have been employed. 10,000. Come on, man. These people are about themselves. They're not about our country.
And today, the company you're talking about, Fonjindam, the company that he left, Vibrant, is practically dead.
It's dead. He made a company which was in intensive care. He woke it up, moved the capital to hundreds of billions, was now a dry dock, fixing ships from all over. He was going to move it to Limbe. When the Mongo Bridge broke down, his expertise was what saved the two parts to connect the country while they build the bridge. So, man, I think, we have the resources, we have the expertise. We only have a government which is corrupt, sitting on our necks. They should let us breathe. In October, we will breathe again.
All right. I think that we have talked about social justice and human rights, where you're talking about guaranteeing the rights of all citizens regardless of gender, ethnicity or origin, promotion of policies to protect vulnerable populations, and strengthening laws against discrimination and violence.
Something I omitted was health.
Right. I was coming to health. You're talking about the universal health coverage,
yes,
and also tackling mental health and well-being as a priority.
Yeah. I think that those who have a mental health deficiency suffer in a country. Also the handicapped people suffer. Go around the government offices and see how many of them have a ramp for people with wheelchairs. If you're a blind guy, if you're going to Douala and you're alone, if you want somebody there to guide you, the government makes no rules. You have to pay 2 seats. Why can they not say, well, you know what? The second passenger is half price by law, because the guy can't see. When I was president of ECOSOC, the African Union, if there was anybody who was handicapped, they couldn't see or walk, I made sure that when they were invited to meetings, they were paid twice for themselves and the person who accompanied them. That was very important. So the handicap in this country, there are things we could do which are really, you can say that in the main streets, okay, those who sell in kiosks are only people who have a mobility problem. Because their hands, they can talk, they're okay. So they sit in those kiosks and they have the monopoly. In the main street, if you want to put a kiosk there, you must be a handicapped person. You must have a disability. And then we'll see what happens. Cashiers in a shop, there are 8 cashiers, please, at least 2 of them must be for those people. They only sit, they do the cashier's job. You integrate, you don't have to be beggars just because they can't walk. Actually, there are innovative things. Universal health care. They are now getting us to make ID cards. 10,000. The irony of it is that ID cards, production of ID cards, is obligatory. If you don't have it, you can be tried, you can go to jail, you can be fined. But if you cannot afford 10,000, does it mean that you can actually be prosecuted for being poor? You don't have 10,000. Gabon and Ivory Coast is free. Why 10,000? Does it mean that you can actually be prosecuted because you're poor? That's not fair.
So you should be free.
Of course you should be free. And then the health care, of course. 1,000 per Cameroonian. A year, 1,000 francs, CFA, 1,000. Let's say only half pay. In the first year, what do you have? 15 billion. With 1 billion per region, you can have a service, emergency service to cater for people, and make sure that any Cameroonian who lands in a hospital is taken care of immediately. Not that you're there bleeding, lying on the floor, and they're asking for your carnet, and this, that, and the other, and you have this injection, you have to run to that. Nobody's attending to the person. No, that shouldn't happen. Any Cameroonian who lands in a hospital in this country should receive immediate treatment. And that will be the law. And we can do that. The first year, you have 15 billion. I don't know how much you will use. The second year, by the time you get to the 10th year, the accumulation of funds will be such that we can totally change the face of the healthcare in this country. And banks are smart. If they know that that's like a tax that people pay, of course they'll advance you the money. So in the first year, you can do the maximum you can. So universal healthcare is possible. Just make sure people don't steal. That's all.
That's where we are going to wrap up this edition of the program, making sure that people don't steal. And many are really hoping that you being the leader of the nation, people shouldn't steal again in Cameroon. Because you have been fighting corruption for so many years.
Yeah. But if they do,
across Africa.
Yeah. If they do, they will regret it. I had a meeting with President Kagame. Then I was Vice President of Transparency. He said, Mr. Muna, I cannot tell you that we will stop corruption in Rwanda. But if you are caught, you will pay for it. That's what I can say. I keep saying that. We should make sure that in this country, being corrupt should be as dangerous as closing your eyes and crossing the main street in Accra. That's how dangerous it should be. Because if you are caught, try closing your eyes and cross the main street in Accra and see what happens to you. So that's how it should be. And in this country, we have shown the kind of impunity, the kind of tolerance. Imagine, I told you before, the audit bench of this country, of the Supreme Court, says people have taken money and nothing happens to them. What kind of impunity? In Glencore, courts have said, oh, Cameroonians were bribed. Nothing happens to them. A French company called Bourbon, it was sentenced. He said, oh, we bribed Cameroonian workers, high-ranking officials. Nothing has been done. As we speak, I'm following up another case at the level of the financial brigade of the Financial Prosecution Office in France, where they're investigating corruption in certain public contracts with French people. What kind of thing is this? Any corruption scandal you meet, there's a Cameroonian involved. What reputation are we building for our country? So we have to make sure that the institutions that fight corruption are in a place. CONAC, I've not been called up by CONAC once to say, Mr. Muna, this is your Glencore. What is it about? Explain to us. Never been called. Never ever. I've written to them, I've sent the documents, I've never been called. Never ever.
All right, Barrister, we're wrapping up this edition of the program, but before we go, yes, I wanted to look at this camera right in front of you and say some few words to Cameroonians with regards to their responsibilities within the context of the forthcoming presidential election. What is expected of them?
Fellow Cameroonians, we have complained, we have complained, we have complained Now is the time for us to be able to save ourselves. And there's only one civilized and democratic way to do it, is to make sure that we have an elector's card and that we are ready to go to the polls to vote for a new future, a rupture from a system that has told us. We are resilient people, but our resilience is for us to use to progress. But our resilience should not be spent on survival and trying to roll back all the mishaps that the system has brought to us and our country. So, as I speak to you now, sincerely from the bottom of my heart, join us, all those who are looking for progress. And I can promise you that with my determination for a 5-year transition government, this country will breathe again. And I thank you very much. And Équinoxe, I thank you so much for coming all the way to talk to me.
Thank you so much for your time and the insights you've shared with us in this edition of the program.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook and YouTube. You can also follow the rebroadcast of the program on Friday at 5 p.m. Thank you so much for your kind attention. God bless Cameroon. Goodbye.